Stephen Sondheim, mixed track.
What you gonna have, mother, what you gonna have, baby, what you gonna have, mother, what you gonna have a lifetime with me.
The other thing that everybody in the show does is, isn't it warm, isn't it cozy? The show, in essence, is an evening with and for Steve Sondheim to aid two very worthwhile charities. Steve is now the acknowledged composer-lyricist of his generation.
My jaw fell open, and I checked, and sure enough, the people who were running the benefit had this elaborate idea of, they weren't going to do it as a dinner, they were going to write a book musical utilizing my songs with different people singing it. So I immediately called Bert Shevelove, who lives in London, and asked him as a favor, because he's done benefits before, to take this one over.
Steve is an old and dear friend, and called me in London and said, I'm going to ask you the first important favor I've ever asked of you. Happened to have been the 12th.
After all, people are giving their time to a benefit, but they're not under contract. You can't have 6 weeks rehearsal and a 4-week out-of-town tryout. You get very little rehearsal, and you have exactly one day. The benefit is put together the afternoon of the evening, because some people don't even arrive in town until that day.
Angela Lansbury, you've come a long way. You've come from London for this. Why have you?
Well, because I wanted to pay tribute to Stephen Sondheim, because if it hadn't been for Stephen, I wouldn't be in the musical comedy business. Did you have some wonderful times with
West
Side?
Side? My gosh, West Side. I mean, that had a lot to do with the rest of my life.
It was my very first show. I'd been writing music up until then, and I didn't want to write just lyrics, but Oscar, who was my guide and mentor right up until the day he died, said that it would be a very good experience for me, even though I'd be frustrated not writing music, because I'd be dealing with people of enormous talent and ability. That is Leonard Bernstein and Jerry Robbins and Arthur Lawrence. And I would learn a great deal through practical experience, and I should not worry about the time lost in not writing music. And he was right.
And there's bullets flying.
It was written for the character that Chita Rivera played, Anita. A funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, and that was 1962.
Stephen was the first person who proposed that I should step out of the drama field and dip my feet into the musical comedy racket, which is a marvelous business, and of course is now my most favorite thing to do, to be in musical theater. And the first musical I ever did in New York was called Anyone Can Whistle.
Everyone hates me, yes, yes. Being the mayoress.
I think the idea of casting Angela was a notion of Arthur Lawrence, who wrote the book and directed it. She seemed like the right casting. We checked to find out whether she could sing, and we found out that she had a voice. In her very first show, she sang just brilliantly. You write those things, I write according to the characters the playwright creates. I get to know the style, the way they think, the way they speak, and I get inside them almost as if I were an actor playing the part, and then I write. But I always take from the book writer. I couldn't invent those people. Often what attracts me to material in the first place is that I find some way of projecting myself. But like all writing, you know, there's no difference. Part of the author is always in what he writes, and part of it is a work of imagination.
Nothing Steve does is flip or casual. It is all terribly well thought of. It's terribly emotionally felt.
The problem is you have a thought that has to be expressed or that you want to express, and you have to determine if and when to use rhyme, which is in itself a rather difficult matter because you don't just rhyme to give it a form. So how do you get an O or an ah sound so the singer can make a point and still not ruin your thought? I will sacrifice anything to the thought. I'd rather have a banal line where the thought is right than a clever line where the thought isn't right. The problem is to make thought, and that's what one of the basic things that Oscar taught me. With Oscar Hammerstein. When I first wrote ballads in my teens, I was writing about trees and stars and willows. I was using all his imagery, naturally. And he said, you know, you're not writing what you feel, you're writing what I feel. And he said, we don't feel the same way, and you have to learn to write what you feel, and don't be ashamed of it. And if you feel like saying I love you, don't be ashamed that it's a cliche, just write it. That's how I got into it. And I knew a lot about lyric writing by the time I was 17 years old, just from the distillation of all this experience, which he shoved at me.
How long do you think that'll take?
Oh, I would say half an hour.
And then, can you give me a half an hour in there?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll get it all done. It's very
Okay.
simple.
Same place?
If you will, then I can't. If you don't, then I gotta give it to you. I don't want it. If you won't, I gotta have it. High, low, wrong, right, yes, no, black, white. God, why don't you love me? Oh, you do. I'll see you later.
There's a subtlety and a sophistication and a know-how, a schooled musician know-how in the thing that a musician can appreciate above and beyond what the layman, the pleasure that a layman derives in listening to his music.
He does another thing. He writes behavior in numbers, which is not just a number.
Well, we're all really pretty lucky, I think. This is an exciting, the whole thing of doing the show on Sunday. For me, it's fantastic.
Anyone can whistle, that's what they say. Easy. Anyone can whistle any old day. Easy. It's all so simple. Relax, let go, let fly. So someone tell me why can't I can dance a tango, I can read Greek, easy. I can slay a dragon any old week, easy. What's hard is simple, what's natural comes hard. Maybe you could show me how to let go, lower my guard, learn to be free.